There is a massive, toxic lie spreading in the modern world right now, and it is destroying the mental health of countless believers. We have been sold the absolute illusion that if you just have enough faith, you will never feel depressed. We have been conditioned to believe that if you are truly close to God, you will never experience the crushing, suffocating weight of anxiety. But what if I told you that one of the most powerful, anointed, and unstoppable men in the entire history of the Bible, a man who literally called down fire from the sky, ended up running into the desert, collapsing under a tree, and begging God to end his life? Today, we are going to completely tear down that religious facade. We are going to look at the raw, unfiltered, brutal truths about mental health, spiritual burnout, and how God actually responds when you hit rock bottom. If you have ever felt completely numb, if you have ever felt like the silence of God is driving you crazy, do not look away. What you are about to discover in the next few minutes is going to permanently change the way you fight your darkest days. To understand the sheer earth-shattering magnitude of this revelation, we have to travel back in time to the ancient Middle East. We need to look at the life of the prophet Elijah. Most people only know Elijah for his highlight reel. They know him as the undisputed superhero of faith. Just days before his massive depressive episode, Elijah was standing on the summit of Mount Carmel. He was facing off against 450 false prophets of Baal in the ultimate spiritual showdown. He prays a simple prayer, and the response from heaven is absolute cinematic perfection. Listen to the first verse, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 38. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. It is a total, undeniable, spectacular victory. The adrenaline is pumping through his veins. The crowd is on their faces in absolute awe. Elijah is at the absolute peak of his career, his ministry, and his entire life. He is untouchable. But here is a psychological and spiritual reality that Hollywood will never tell you, and religion often deliberately ignores. Your greatest point of vulnerability is almost always immediately after your greatest victory. When the adrenaline finally leaves your physical body, when the massive crowd goes home, and when the silence settles in, the crash is inevitable. Elijah receives a single death threat from Queen Jezebel. And this man, who just stared down an entire army of false prophets without even blinking, suddenly snaps. The psychological weight of carrying the nation, the physical exhaustion of the battle, the chronic unyielding stress, it completely shatters his nervous system. This brings us to the second verse, 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 3 and 4. Then he was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life, and went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Look incredibly closely at those words. It is enough. Have you ever said that? Have you ever sat on the edge of your bed, staring blankly at the floor, crying until your chest physically hurt, saying, "God, I am done. I have absolutely nothing left to give. I cannot fight this depression anymore. I cannot carry this crushing anxiety for another day. It is enough." Elijah was experiencing severe clinical burnout. He was experiencing active suicidal ideation. He was completely isolated in the brutal wilderness, utterly convinced that he was a total, unforgivable failure. Now pay very close attention to how God responds, because this is where the religious conditioning we have received for decades is proven completely and utterly wrong. If a modern religious leader found Elijah under that tree, what would they say? They would probably scold him. They would yell, "Where is your faith, Elijah? Stop crying. Read your Bible. Fast for 40 days. Be strong and rebuke that spirit of depression." We have created a God of the boot camp who only barks orders, but we have completely forgotten the God of extreme, radical empathy. When you are bleeding out emotionally, God does not hand you a theology textbook. God does not scream at you to get up and try harder. Watch what the Creator of the universe does. 1 Kings chapter 19 verses 5 and 6. And he lay down and slept under a broom tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stones, and a jar of water. And he ate and drank, and lay down again. Do you see the profound, breathtaking beauty in this? God looks at his greatest, most exhausted prophet, and he does not give him a three-point sermon. He gives him a hot meal and a nap. He lets him sleep. He provides fresh bread baked on hot stones and cool, refreshing water. Sometimes, the most deeply spiritual thing you can do for your raging anxiety is drink a glass of water and go to sleep. God honors your humanity. He created your fragile physical body. He knows that when your nervous system is completely fried, your spiritual vision goes totally blind. Before God deals with your mind, He tenderly cares for your exhausted body. Stop condemning yourself for being tired. The Creator of the stars is not angry with your exhaustion. He is sitting beside you in the dirt, offering you rest. Elijah travels for 40 days and 40 nights until he reaches Mount Horeb, the ancient mountain of God. He is desperately seeking an answer. He is seeking a fundamental reason for his unbearable pain, and he hides inside a dark, cold cave. This is our fourth verse, 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 9. There he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here? God asks the question not because God doesn't know the answer, but because he desperately wants Elijah to articulate his pain. You see, depression builds caves. Anxiety builds impenetrable fortresses. When we are hurting, we retreat into the darkest, most isolated corners of our own minds, building massive emotional walls to protect ourselves from being hurt again. We sit in the dark, constantly replaying our worst failures, convincing ourselves that we are the only ones on planet Earth suffering this way. God calls him out of the cave to stand on the edge of the mountain. And this is where the ultimate paradigm shift happens. This is the exact moment that will permanently redefine your relationship with the Almighty. Elijah steps out, fully expecting God to show up the exact same way he always did. He is expecting the spectacular. He is expecting the Hollywood blockbuster miracle. He is expecting God to obliterate his deep depression with a massive, undeniable explosion of divine power. Listen to the core text. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 and 12. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a low whisper. Why wasn't God in the violent wind? Why wasn't he in the devastating earthquake? Why wasn't he in the roaring fire? Because chaos is the language of your trauma. The world you live in is loud. Your anxiety is incredibly loud. Your panic attacks feel exactly like an earthquake shattering your chest. Your depression feels like an unstoppable fire burning down your future and your dreams. The enemy screams at you day and night that you are worthless, that you are a failure, that you are a disappointment, and that you are entirely alone in this fight. If God spoke to you in the earthquake, he would just be adding to the terrifying noise. God is not trying to compete with the sheer chaos of your life. Instead, God chose to manifest his infinite, earth-shattering power in a low whisper, or, as the original Hebrew translates it, the sound of sheer silence, a gentle, unmovable stillness. Why a whisper? Because a whisper fundamentally requires intimacy. Think about human nature. If I am angry with you, I will stand all the way across the room and yell at you. If I want to give you a generic instruction, I will speak to you from a safe distance. But if I want to whisper a secret to you, I have to come close. I have to close the distance completely. I have to lean in so close to you that you can actually feel my breath on your face. God used a whisper because he was essentially telling Elijah, I am not standing millions of miles away in heaven, throwing lightning bolts at your problems. I am right here. I am closer than your own heartbeat. I am in the muddy trenches of this depression right beside you. When you are in the deepest, darkest valley of your mental health, stop looking for the fire. Stop waiting for the earthquake. Stop thinking that God has abandoned you just because your painful circumstances haven't miraculously exploded into overnight success. Tune your ear to the stillness. God is whispering to your broken heart right now because he is holding you closer than you have ever been held before. Elijah hears the whisper. He wraps his face in his cloak and he steps out of the darkness. The healing process begins not with a magic wand that erases his memory, but with a profoundly renewed sense of purpose. God doesn't just leave him to rot in the desert. God gives him a definitive reason to keep living and fighting. Look at our final verse. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 15 and 16. And the Lord said to him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Maholah you shall anoint to be prophet in your place. God says, go back. Your story is absolutely not over. Your depression is not your final destination. Your anxiety is not the closing chapter of your biography. God is sending Elijah back into the brutal world, not just to survive, but to anoint the next generation. God is actively telling him to go find Elisha. God is saying, you are not alone. There are thousands of others who haven't bowed their knee to the darkness. I am giving you a community. I am giving you a successor. I am giving you a legacy that will outlive your pain. God is an absolute expert at recycling your pain. He takes the very trauma that almost destroyed your mind, the very dark cave where you wanted to die, and he turns it into the exact launching pad for your greatest, most impactful purpose. The deep comfort you are receiving in your darkness today is the exact same comfort you are going to use to save someone else's life tomorrow. You are not broken beyond repair. Your vulnerability is not a liability. It is the exact landing strip for the unstoppable power of the Almighty God. Let the wind howl. Let the earthquake shake the ground beneath your feet. Let the fires of life burn all around you. You stand still. You listen for the whisper, because the Creator of the universe is leaning in right now, whispering directly to your exhausted soul, you are mine. You are unconditionally loved, and your greatest days are still ahead. If this profound message spoke directly to your heart today, if you felt that divine whisper breaking through the unbearable noise of your life, do not leave this video without taking action right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a weapon of truth to fight your battles. I want you to go down to the comments right now and make a bold public declaration of your faith. Type the words, I hear the whisper, to let the enemy know you are no longer listening to the lies of anxiety. Hit the like button to help the YouTube algorithm push this video to someone sitting in their own dark cave right now who desperately needs to hear this truth to survive. And share this video with a friend or family member who is secretly fighting a silent mental battle they cannot win alone. Welcome to the Bible Motivation community. Stop fighting alone, keep listening for the whisper, and we will see you in the next video.